Okay, this is week 2 for the 52 questions. I thought I might as well do it now while I've got the bunnies here. You can watch bunnies with me. Jackrabbits. The second question is, when and where were you born? Describe your home, your neighborhood, and the town you grew up in. And I was born in the Swedish hospital in Minneapolis, March 28th, 1951. I was kind of jealous of everybody in high school because I was a year ahead, and they were all born in 1950, right in the middle of the whole century. And I missed out. I was late. But so I'll be 66 in March. And the neighborhood, okay, and the home. Well, it was very typical of what you saw in the 50s, after the war, where they built these suburbs. They just mowed everything down, all the trees and everything, and built all these houses. They just houses and houses, blocks and blocks of them. And so I always called where I grew up in Fridley as a naked suburb when we moved in there. They mowed everything down. You put everything in, and everybody sodded. It was like mass production. It was really fascinating for a kid. We moved into Fridley when I was 5, and then they planted a few trees. The city planted one tree in front of every house, I remember. Elm tree, I think it was. And we had elm disease go through years later, wiped out a lot of the trees. But, that's the kind of place I grew up in. It was a suburb of Minneapolis, so I was a suburban girl to a big metropolitan area. And what else was it? Let's see. Our home, it was a Donne home by the Donne builders. I think it was Donne, as I recall. And it was like one level, and that's the whole neighborhood. We had different versions of this, just slight variations like they do in the suburbs. They all look pretty much the same. The typical 50s house, and it had originally had 2 bedrooms, and they added on to the back of the house and put a bedroom in the basement. And they added on and expanded later on. Seems to me I was already moved out, I think, at that time. They added on and made a great big kitchen dining area. But, yeah, and we had a detached garage. Trying to see. Yeah. There's not so much seed left there anymore, and it's the small stuff, and there isn't hardly any of the sunflower seeds left, so they're probably going to give up pretty soon, I would think. But anyway, that's the basics of where I grew up, I guess. Went to Fridley High School, and let's see. Well, when we moved in there, though, we were like, the next block behind the next block was a big man-made lake. They had dredged out more lake. Had a highway going down the middle of it, so we were on the Westmore Lake side. And there was no senior high. I can't remember if there was a junior high even back then. And so where those were later was just wild prairie fields and sand dunes until I was 10. They started building the senior high. And so I had 5 years of being able to just roam around those fields. And, I did that as much as possible. I spent almost my whole summers out in the fields and down by the lake. So things like mallard ducks and skinks and 13 striped ground squirrels, crows, flickers. Oh my gosh! I mean, there were just all these wild critters, garter snakes, salamanders, and they were building a lot, of course. A lot of construction going on in the new suburb. And so we were kind of displacing a lot of animals, just like what's happening here, actually. Up in Fargo, they're building so much, and that's how come we've got the jackrabbits and grouse outside of kind of suburban area. But I remember the salamanders, yellow-spotted salamanders, would fall into people's window wells because we lived, pretty close to the lake. And so I used to take coffee cans or ice cream pails and go around and search the window wells, everybody's window wells, and look for the salamanders. And sometimes other kids would help me too. And we'd save them because otherwise they died in the window wells. And then I'd bring them back over by the lake, things like that. I have lots of memories of critter stuff. And garter snakes, you could pick them up. They don't bite or anything. We had a lot of garter snakes, and sometimes, I remember we had a female that had babies in our window well, so I also picked up all the babies and brought them down to the lake. Oh my gosh, there's so many animal stories. But anyway, that's my answer to that question for this week. And I guess the bunnies have taken off. They're gone for the evening. They'll probably be back again for little nibbles. Okay, that's the second week of 52 stories. Okay, bye-bye.